Good afternoon. I almost said good morning, but it's exactly noon, so we're good. How's everybody today? Doing good? Okay. You can't hear me? Okay, I'll speak up a little bit. So let me know in the back. Can you hear me in the back okay? Okay, kind of, sort of. All right. So welcome. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to go over understanding and responding to dementia-related behaviors. Feel free to ask questions as we go. I don't know if the typical is to ask them afterward. I'm okay if you ask them during. Anything goes. There's some pamphlets on your chairs. The blue one is for support groups. So those support groups are all throughout the valley. And then the purple one just kind of talks about what we do here in town. And then there's some helpline cards up front if anybody wants our phone number as well. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and start. Actually, I want to ask a question first, and I probably know the answer. How many of you here are affected with Alzheimer's or know somebody who's affected with Alzheimer's? Pretty much everybody, right? And if you aren't or don't know somebody, the chances are you probably will. And so I'm going to try to make sure that you know, if you come across anybody or you know somebody with Alzheimer's, that you can better deal with those behaviors that come about. And behaviors can change at any time. You kind of have to be on your toes. Something else you want to be on is you're a detective. I'm going to go through this, and you're going to find out that you really will have to be a detective. So by the end of today's program, you'll be able to identify common triggers for behaviors associated with dementia, explain the process for assessing and identifying challenging behaviors, and list strategies to address common dementia-related behaviors. So behavioral changes can have many, many triggers. It's good to know that, again, with I'm going to keep going back to being a detective. Triggers are going to be different for everybody, but these are the common triggers. You have pain or discomfort. I mean, how many of us here have a headache and it just can really ruin your day? You still have to go to work, you still have to do what you have to do, but something as simple as a headache can really just ruin your day. And even just discomfort, you slept wrong, your back is hurting. So imagine this plus the disease of Alzheimer's. It's just not fun. The other problem with this is that sometimes somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia doesn't know how to express to you that they're in pain. They might be able to tell you they're in pain or know that they're in pain or feel pain, but they can't tell you where it is, exactly what's hurting them, or how bad it hurts. So these are all things that can be triggers, and it's frustrating. Overstimulation or boredom. So those are two opposite ends of the spectrum. With overstimulation, it's really important to remember that somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia can sometimes have a lot of brain chatter going on in their own minds that you are not hearing. Not always, but it's definitely possible. Part of the overstimulation, however, is you can go walk outside and there's these beautiful birds chirping away, and then you have horns honking from the street, and you might have two people yelling at each other over here. For the average person, it might be a little, whatever, irritating maybe, or nice. You like the birds, you don't mind the honking. People arguing, what are you going to do? Somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, that is complete overstimulation, and it can make them just very uncomfortable and very agitated and frustrated. So that's a trigger. And because it's not something that you or anybody else might find agitating, you're not going to think that it's what's bothering them and that it's a trigger. So just knowing that little things like that can be agitating and can be a trigger is step one in kind of being that detective. Fear or frustration. So really, truly, when it comes to Alzheimer's, I can't even imagine how scary that would be to know that you know something and not be able to remember it or recall it. You know it. You know that feeling when you have something on the tip of your tongue and it's kind of frustrating? That's nothing compared to what's going on. So I can't even imagine how frustrating that must be on a daily basis. To know that you have a word that you need to say and you can't remember that word. To know that the bathroom is that way because you've been going that way to the bathroom for the past 5 years and you just can't remember how to get to the bathroom. How frustrating can that possibly be? So those are triggers. Those are triggers. Unfamiliar surroundings. Again, the average person, and I say that because technically we're all average. It's, some above, some below. But truthfully, unfamiliar surroundings. Personally, I'll go to a place that I'm not familiar with, and I think we can all be a little uncomfortable when you first get there, right? You're not sure where the bathroom is, you're not sure, if you're supposed to go left or right, where you're supposed to sit. Unfamiliar surroundings can be a little, kind of uncomfortable for most of us. So imagine being somebody with all these other complications and being in unfamiliar surroundings. It can trigger some of these other triggers, fear. So you can see how some of these triggers can kind of go hand in hand, especially frustration and fear. A lot of these other things, other triggers, can cause the frustration or fear, and that itself is a trigger. Complicated tasks. When it comes to complicated tasks, this could be something that used to not be complicated. It could be something like, your loved one was the first person up in the morning or is the first person up in the morning, and what do they do every morning? But they make a cup of or a pot of coffee. And so, that is a average, uncomplicated task for the most part. Suddenly, as the brain is beginning to deplete a little bit, they're going to have issues doing things that they used to do all the time and every day. And again, that's going to lead to frustration. So all of these can be triggers and things to look out for. Each person is different, and that's something you'll have to remember, is that each person is different, and that's why that detective is going to come into play for all of you. So when it comes to understanding and addressing the behaviors, these are some, I would say, the 4 steps that you're going to want to check, and you have these on your handouts. So definitely remember these. The first one is detect and connect. Address physical needs first, then address emotional needs, and then reassess and plan for the next time. And we'll go over all of these in a minute. I want to specifically talk about reassessing and planning for the next time, because I'm going to keep saying this so everybody knows. Even if you think it will work, it may not work the first time. But, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, it's always good to write things down, because if you're starting to be that detective and you're figuring out what those triggers are, and you detect, you connect, you address the physical needs, it's not any of that, you address emotional needs, maybe you figured out it's emotional needs. So you write that down, what was going on, what was the trigger, what did we do, what was the behavior from that trigger, how did I respond to it? And then you reassess and plan for the next time. Did it work? Because if it did, make sure you write it down, highlight it, do whatever you need to do, because if it worked, that's good. You got to remember, though, it's not going to work every time. It might work most of the time, but it may not work every time. And it also depends on what the triggers are and what the behaviors are. So really, truly, just being a detective and being thorough when you're writing things down is very, very important. So when it comes to detect and connect, what you're going to want to do is join the person in his or her reality by trying to see the world through his or her eyes. This is really, really important. Whatever you do, try not to argue with them or disagree with them or tell them that they're wrong. If they look out the window and they see that it's raining, guess what? It's raining. Don't say, no, it's not. It's beautiful out there. What are you talking about? Don't you hear the birds? No, it's raining. Okay, it's raining. Let it be raining. Because does it really hurt to agree? Probably not, right? You just want to keep them happy, keep them comfortable. And if you argue with them, it's going to make them think like, am I seeing things? You don't want them to think that. You want to just go with them and be in their reality. Especially, really, it's not going to make a big difference in the day-to-day. Understanding the person's reality in context before intervening. Who, what, where, when, how. What took place before, during, and after the behavior took place. These are really important questions as well. Who, for instance. Say there's a new, cousin coming into town that your loved one doesn't really get along with or used to not get along with, but they really want to come visit. So they come visit. Well, those long-term memories are still there. So that person could come in and that person could be a trigger. So just be real careful with things like that. It could even be, you could go to the grocery store and the person at the cashier might look just like somebody that your loved one does not like, or that may not look anything like them, but sounds just like them, smells like them. Anything. You really have to be a detective. It could be anything. When, how. It could be the time of day. Maybe certain times of day. Are they overly tired? Have you been running them around all day, maybe doing errands? Things that you used to do all the time, and suddenly they're more tired than usual. And so maybe in the afternoon they're starting to get more tired, and the triggers are just popping up. What took place before, during, or after the behavior. Again, write all of this down, especially if it's something that you're noticing, like say on a weekly basis or like every other day. Maybe you're doing something or they're doing something every other day that you're not really wouldn't think would be a trigger necessarily, but it is. So unless you're writing it down, you'll never be able to find it and then fix it or tweak it or do whatever it is you need to do to make that person more comfortable. Approach the person calmly and respectfully. Really, truly, if it seems like they're aggravating you or they're doing it on purpose, they're not. They're really not. They're just going through the day-to-day and doing the best they can, just like you are. So just approach them calmly and respectfully, and talk about what it is that maybe you guys can do together. Address physical needs first. So medical issues, physical problems like hunger or thirst, lack of social interaction. Are they bored? Could they be bored? Environmental triggers for discomfort. So again, with those loud noises, maybe the TV is on kind of loud. Maybe the TV is on and then the microwave is going off and then the dog is barking. All of these things can be really irritating, truly. And there are things, again, that maybe you're so used to that you don't even really pay attention to anymore. So all of these things just look out for. Medical issues, are they diabetic? Is their blood sugar low? Do they have high blood pressure? All of those things could be triggers. Bless you. All of those things could be triggers. So part of this is also knowing your person, knowing your loved one, and knowing some of the things that physically and medically that they have to deal with on a daily basis, because it could be those things as well. Have they not been eating? Maybe they're super hungry, or maybe they have been eating but not drinking and they're really thirsty and just parched, but they don't want to drink water because they think they've already drank it. So it could be one of those things that it's like that vicious cycle, but again, just be a detective. Once you've addressed physical needs, then you need to address emotional needs. Focus on the person's feelings, not the facts. Use your knowledge of the person's preferences to provide effective interventions. Redirect the energy into a more soothing activity. So focus on the person's feelings, not the facts. Kind of going back to if it's raining outside and being in their reality, it's kind of the same thing. You don't want to aggravate them. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable or that they're, crazy and they're seeing things. You want to make sure that they know that you support them. Yes?
My mom had PSP, so it wasn't Alzheimer's, but we had been in a store, and when we came out, we went to her car, and I was driving it, and she said, "This isn't my car." And I said, "Yeah, it is your car." And we went over, and I'm like, "Look inside. There's your sweater. There's this. There's this. There's this." And I finally, what you're saying, I said, "Okay, it's not your car, but we're going to take it home." And she was like, "Okay." And she got in the car.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, but it took me a while to, figure out.
Right. Right, because that's not something that you'll think to do, immediately off the bat. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think especially when it has to do with safety or, just getting home. Yeah. How do we get home? We need to get home and we need to get in this car. We call it therapeutic fibbing. And it's, it might sound mean, and some people have a really hard time doing that. And I understand that. Because guess what? When you're growing up, what are you supposed to not do to your parents? You're not supposed to lie to them, right? You're not supposed to lie to anybody. And here you are having to tell these little white lies. But sometimes they're necessary. And sometimes they're for the best, really. Especially if, A, you're going to be able to get home, and B, you're not going to agitate her or make her think that she's seeing things or, that she doesn't know what she's talking about. So that's really, truly, if you could just, again, be in their reality, use those therapeutic fibs, again, especially when safety is involved. One big one is driving. The person shouldn't drive anymore. It's okay to tell them the car's in the shop again and again and again. Just because you don't want them getting in that car and driving and hurting themselves or somebody else. That's huge safety-wise. So it's okay to tell them the car's in the shop and then go park it at a neighbor's house if you need to. Take the battery out. You got to be creative sometimes. It's okay. Redirecting the energy into a more soothing activity, that's a really big one too. A lot of this is not only being a detective, but it's also being really, really creative. And you'll get more and more creative as the time goes by, let me tell you. Redirecting, if you know, again, knowing your person. So if you know that your person likes, scented lotions, so there, you can see that you've been writing stuff down. You can see that the triggers are starting to come. Maybe it's one of those days that it's like thunder and lightning and they don't like that. So they're one that doesn't like that, and you can see that it's a trigger. Pull them into another room, pull out that lotion, give them a nice little hand massage, maybe put on some candles, something else that's redirecting them away from whatever that trigger is. Knowing your person is really big, and if you don't, that's okay. Just kind of ask them some questions. Talk to the family members if it's not your family. Get some additional information, because the more you know about them, the easier it will be. It's never going to be easy, but the easier it will be to kind of come up with these little ideas and creative things.
She was part of the family, she'd fold towels, and she'd fold towels all day long some days. Just, put them back in the basket, and then she'd give them to her, here's some more towels. And it may sound like it's cruel, but look, it kept her busy, it kept her movements going, it kept her, just kept her occupied, and it made her feel wanted and that she was contributing. We created a routine for her that worked. For her, around her agitation and her sleep patterns. So every day she was in the same routine for the most part, and every day she did something. She was always in the kitchen every day helping do something. Sometimes she'd rinse dishes, but she was always near the kitchen sink because she spent most of her life in front of the kitchen sink. Now she's just doing it in different ways. And going for a walk, going out in the car for a drive, walking around the yard, watering plants. Those are all things that she did, and we just had her continue doing them.
And that's really, really important, to keep your loved ones involved as much and as long as possible. And even if, what she did is perfect, give the mom something to do, give your loved one something to do, and guess what? Even if she, say, gave her mom the dishes to wash, and they didn't come out very good, don't say anything about it. Go back and finish them yourself if you have to. Keep them engaged, keep them involved, keep them happy. Folding towels, doing the dishes, whatever it is that's easy, but that means something to them, and that's something that they enjoy doing. Coloring books, they have those adult coloring books now. You can, sit and do coloring books with them. Really just keeping them busy and active, even if it's not physically active. Physically active is great, but not everybody can do that. So if it's not physically active, then definitely mentally active.
Nicole?
Yes?
I used to work in a memory care unit, and we had a gentleman who was always on the floor. And we looked back on what he did for a living. He was a carpet layer.
Oh.
And so we just let him go around, and people looked at it like, get him up off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to explain, he was a carpet layer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what he enjoyed
Right.
doing.
So yeah, so I don't know if anybody could hear, but Karen was saying they had a gentleman that was a carpet layer, and he was always on the floor. And you're right, people will look at you like, why are you letting him stay on the floor? He might be comfortable on the floor, and he probably was. That was what he was used to. And that's okay, and that's what I mean, knowing your person and knowing what they used to do a long time ago. You might have somebody who used to love to paint, and maybe they can still paint for the most part, but it might not be as nice as, when they were younger, but it's probably still beautiful. And something else to remember, if you are doing these things with your loved ones, it's not about the end result. It's only about what you're doing and how you're doing it and when you're doing it, the process. Thank you. It's never really about the end result. It's just about having fun with that person, keeping them engaged, keeping them involved, and keeping them stimulated. It's just, about having fun, really. So reassess and plan for the next time. go back to detecting and connecting. So back to square one if you have to. Again, join the person's reality. What went well, what didn't. How can you make adjustments? And so again, like I was saying earlier, just don't get discouraged if whatever it is that you did that isn't working. If you can, continue to write stuff down as much as possible. Keep as many notes as you can. It'll really make all the difference because I think we can all safe to say that everybody's highly busy in their daily lives, and so you might forget to write something down, and that might be your trigger right there that you missed. So if you could just write something down. Those of you that just can jot notes down in your phones, even if you're doing it that way, it'll really help in the long run, especially if you have a specific behavior that you're having a hard time figuring out what's that trigger. Something else that's really important to remember when you're dealing with triggers and behaviors is how you react to that behavior. Because if they're doing a behavior that is kind of irritating you, and we're all human, it's going to happen, it's okay. But how did you react to it? So it's okay to take, 10 seconds, step back, leave the room for a minute, and then come back and figure out, how can we help this situation? What can we do? Because it's very easy, again, as human beings, to react in a way that is very human and get angry or get agitated or like, why do you keep doing this? Don't you get it? It's understandable. It's going to happen. It's okay. But as long as you can, keep yourself in that check mode and remember that they're not doing it on purpose. Let me just write this down. Let me see what's going on. Let me go back through the day. What happened? And then make your adjustments accordingly. It's not a perfect system, but it'll help. It'll definitely help along the way. You can apply these, the detect and connect, address physical needs, emotional needs, and then reassess and plan for next time. You can apply these to any behavior, really. Anxiety or agitation. What are they anxious about? Restlessness, pacing, distress, over-reliance on caregivers. I'm going to point out this over-reliance on caregivers. It's okay to be an amazing caregiver and do all you can for your loved one. However, if they are over-reliant on you and you're not there, say you have, in-home agency come in and hang out for an hour or two so you can go to the grocery store. That's okay, right? Go see a movie. I think everybody needs time off. Well, guess what? They're over-reliant on you and now they're freaking out because you're not there anymore. Nobody's fault. It's just something that can happen. So detect and connect, address the physical needs, address emotional needs, and then reassess and plan. So do all of those things. What is causing the anxiety or agitation? In that case, obviously, you would know that it's because you've left the house. But can we all say that it's not healthy for you to stay in the house all the time? You need to get out of the house. So this is something that you would need to figure out. What can I do? Maybe you could have that person come in the house and you're still there. And so you're hanging out, maybe you're doing dishes, and they're just kind of keeping them company, playing cards, dominoes, whatever it is they like to do. And then maybe the next day they can come in again and you stay there, but maybe you go out into the garage. So you're not right there, but you're close by. And so that, you know what I mean, that you slowly get through that anxiety that they might have. And hopefully it'll work. You just kind of have to, again, be a detective and be creative. But nobody likes to be anxious and nobody likes to be agitated. So just work through it with them. So again, detect and connect, address physical needs. You guys are going to know these by heart by the end of this hour, huh? Address emotional needs and reassess and plan for the next time. Confusion or suspicion. Not recognizing familiar people, places, or things. Accusing others of theft and infidelity. Has anybody had any experience with this? Okay. It's not fun. It's not fun at all, and it happens all the time. Confusion or suspicion. Confusion can be scary. Suspicion can be frustrating because you didn't take their wallet, you didn't take their keys, you're not cheating on them. I've seen caregivers that what happens is the loved one, it's husband and wife, and the loved one is remembering they've been married 50 years. And the person they see in front of them is, in their 70s, Well, they're remembering their wife or husband in their 20s and 30s. And so suddenly, who is this 70-year-old woman in my house? You know, you better get out of here before my wife comes home. Like, that happens. Truly, that happens. So how do you deal with that? You just, you know what, she's not coming home today. Don't worry about it. I'm just here to clean the house. Not fun to do, but sometimes if you just need to keep them calm and keep them from, again, thinking that you're accusing them of seeing things or not knowing what's going on, it can be more agitating for them. So those are kind of more difficult moments to deal with because it's hard to not take that personally, especially if it's a husband and wife or mother and daughter and father and son, whatever, and they don't recognize you. That's so like sad, and I can't even imagine. But the next day they might recognize you, and it could be in and out. Theft. You took my wallet. I know you took my wallet. Give it back. That's happened, and it will happen. What'd you do with my purse? I know you have my purse. No, I don't have your purse. I saw you take my purse. Guess what? They saw you take their purse. So what do? You know what? I'm so sorry. It looks just like my purse. I think I just mixed them up. I'm going to go get it, and I'll bring it to you. I'm so sorry. End of story. Even if they're looking for stuff they don't even own. Where is my purple scissors? You don't have purple scissors. Yes, I do. Where's my purple scissors? Guess what? You just tell them they have purple scissors. You agree with them. You go out and buy them if you have to. Unless it's like a car or something expensive, then forget about it. Yeah. No, but you know what? Yeah, just this is when you want to go to the redirecting, right? Oh, you're right. I just saw your purple scissors in the other room, but you know what? Your favorite TV show's on. Let's go watch that, and then we'll find your scissors. Guess what? Show's over. No more scissors, right? Plus, you don't want to have scissors, do you?
I looked after a neighbor, and she would hide her stuff.
Oh.
So then I'd always have to go down and look in the couch, look everywhere.
Under the mattress.
See, detective. They hide their stuff too, and it's fun, right? I know it's difficult. But yeah, you just have to kind of be a detective and figure out what those triggers are and be in their reality. Go with it. Do everything you can to not agitate them or aggravate them. Tell a therapeutic fib. Redirect. All of those things will work. They might not all work at the same time. You might need to go through all of them until you find one that works, but eventually you'll find one. So again, confusion or suspicion. Detect and connect, address physical needs, then address emotional needs, and then reassess and plan for next time. Please don't get discouraged if it doesn't work the first time. You'll figure it out. Aggression. This one can be very touchy and very difficult to deal with. Aggressive behavior can be verbal or physical. It may occur suddenly for no apparent reason or may emerge following a trigger. This is something to not take lightly, especially if it is physical. We've had, people that have called us, and we have a big 6'5", he might be in his 60s or 70s, but guess what? This wife of his is 5'2". He can really hurt her. And he might not mean to. He might think she's somebody else or something else or whatever it is. So please don't take that lightly. Figure out what the trigger is. What's that behavior? What's going on? But just be careful when it comes to aggression. Detect and connect. Figure out what it is. What's going on? Be in the reality. Maybe you're wearing a color that, as silly as it might sound, you don't know. Maybe it's a perfume that's really bothering that person. The senses can be going all over the place. Address physical needs, address emotional needs, reassess and plan for next time. Be very, very careful with this. There's also verbal abuse, verbal aggression. We have the clients who may speak like 2 languages. Actually, you'll see a video in a second, but who's are bilingual, and suddenly that first language, Spanish, Greek, whatever it is, will come out, and all of the curse words will come out. And it's this little cute little 75-year-old woman, and she's just yelling all kinds of obscenities out. What are you gonna do? You gotta figure out, like, hopefully it's in the other language and not in English, and that way most people won't understand what they're saying. But yeah, it happens, and you just got to kind of figure out what are those triggers. It always goes back to what are those triggers, and really what's going on. And it's you kind of have to laugh a little bit sometimes, right? It can't be serious all the time. You have to kind of keep a sense of humor, but it is kind of funny to see like the cutest little thing just saying these crazy like obscenities. This is what she'll talk about.
On the tough days, my husband and I would switch off. And my mom had forgotten all her English and had gone back to speaking only Greek. So she just spoke Greek, and my husband doesn't speak Greek, so it was perfect. So when she was agitated and she was cussing and yelling and saying all kinds of obnoxious things, my husband couldn't understand, so to him it didn't matter. So when she was in that mode, we'd switch off, and he'd take her for a drive. She'd stare out the window, eat fries, and she'd be fine. And it would give me a break to really decompress from some of the stuff she was saying that I know she was just saying them, the words, but I'm a human being as well, and I was taking them personally.
And what she said is so true. We're all human beings. It's really hard to not take it personal. No matter how many times somebody tells you don't take it personal, you're human. It's hard to not take it personal. And these things can be really hurtful. Sometimes people will say just really mean things. And they don't mean it. They really don't. But how do you not take it personal? You gotta walk away. You just gotta walk away. You gotta let somebody else take over sometimes. It's okay to do that. You do the best you can, right? When it comes to aggression, usually aggressive behaviors associated with dementia are upsetting but not dangerous. Occasionally, the person is a danger to themselves or others, and safety measures are necessary. So this is very true, and it is very possible. So that's why I said please proceed with caution when it comes to aggression. Usually, they're not dangerous, but there is always that potential for them to be dangerous. So just be careful. Occasionally, the person is a danger to themselves as well. Speak with the person's doctor about medical interventions if that's the route that you want to go, and call 911 if you need to, if help is urgently needed. I think that's one of the harder things to do, is to call 911 on your loved one. But again, if you have somebody who is being physical and who can genuinely hurt you, it's okay. It's okay to call 911 in that sense. They do have a disease, but it's not worth you being seriously hurt or them being seriously hurt.
What do they do with them knowing they're mentally ill?
It depends. They can call sometimes they'll put them in the hospital. They'll put them and do like a legal 2000, which would be like in a geri psych unit, which isn't the best thing to do. But it does get them out of the house for a little while. And then hopefully you could maybe get them to a doctor and see if maybe the medication needs to be changed. It could be just something as simple as the medications are off. As it progresses, the medication might need to be changed. So it could be something like that. One of the more frustrating and kind of bothersome things that they do is repetition. So saying something over and over, repeating words, questions, or even behaviors. Anybody have that? Yeah. Okay. And it's really difficult to answer the same question, right? Over and over and over again. Sometimes there is a trigger for this. It could be, say they just went to the doctor yesterday morning, and so now it's today. Yesterday they went to the doctor, and today you're going someplace else around the same time. And so they're like, where are we going? We're going to the park today. Okay, 5 minutes later. Where are we going? Well, guess what? They went to the doctor yesterday, and so they're like, they didn't have a good time at the doctor. They don't like their doctor for whatever, some love their doctor, some don't, whatever. But they have this thought of, the last time we got in the car, we went to the doctor and I didn't like it so much. So now we're getting in the car and we're probably going to go to the doctor again. Where are we going? Where are we going? And you have to just do your best to remain as calm and cool and collected as possible, and just answer the question as best as you can without yelling or getting aggravated. And truthfully, that is difficult. That is very difficult, I have to say. Because I think everybody deep down knows they're not doing it on purpose. They truly don't remember what the answer was to the question. But they're going to ask it again because they don't know what the answer was to the question. They don't even know they asked the question 5 minutes ago. So this one is probably one of the most difficult to figure out because there's not always a trigger necessarily. But if there is and you find it, more power to you.
Repetition is really one of the most common and also frustrating behaviors for caregivers. It's important to really just take a minute, take a breath, and really think about how you could help that person with the answer that they're looking for. It really makes no sense to sort of bump heads with them and try to correct them or try to tell them to stop asking it, because they really can't remember that they just asked you that a minute ago. So thinking about how you could provide an answer that's reassuring, even though you might be doing it over and over and over again.
That's a rough one, truly. So again, does everybody remember these at this point? Detect and connect, address physical needs, then address emotional needs, reassess, and plan for next time. It won't happen all the time, but it will happen. And it, like he said, it is one of the most common things that will happen. Just do the best you can. That's the only thing.
Word they heard you say, because
Yeah.
you're busy doing something, and they hear that word, and then they keep saying the same word over
Right.
and over and over.
Right. That's the truth. But you could see with I would say with repetition, the one thing that will work a lot of the time, maybe not all the time, is the redirecting. Maybe throw some music on, sing a song with them, change the subject, put a television show on, play a game, redirect, redirect, redirect. That is probably the one thing that will work and at least stop them for the time being from asking you the same question or saying the same word or doing the same behavior. Yes.
I had a gal who did that all the time. She was one of our clients we were taking care of. And so I would bring over coupons, and I would have her clip coupons, and that would, so when she'd start asking me, I'd say, oh, you know what, we're going to be going to the store. Can you help me clip coupons?
Yep.
And then she'd get so into like making sure the lines were all
There you go.
right that it would take care of the problem usually for at least for a while.
There you go. So Christina was saying that she had a woman that she was saying the same thing over and over again?
Yes.
Or asking a question, or was she just, was it a?
telling me the same story. She'd
Oh,
get
the same
hooked
story.
on something that was like really, really irritating her, and then she would tell me the same thing. It was, and then she'd get herself all agitated and worked up over it.
So her own repetition was her own trigger in that case. And so Christina had her cut coupons and it worked. It got her a redirect. So yes, that is, I would say that's, not that there's nothing else is going to help, but that's one thing that's easy to do that should at least help for the time being. Again, she might do the same thing the very next day, but you know, it got her past that for that time
It
frame.
got her in a more positive mood.
Yeah, because you don't want them to be aggravated or.
Got her out of her, she'd get into this negative thing. It got her out of that, and then we could start talking about something else.
There you go. Yeah, you have to. You just have to. All I'm going to keep saying is just do the best you can. Everybody is human. It's not by any means easy. It's very, very, very difficult. But just do the best you can, really. Wandering. This one is scary. And 60% of people with dementia will wander. And it can happen at any stage without warning. The biggest thing I like to tell people is please, please, please don't think because they never leave the house that they're never going to leave the house. Because there could definitely be that one day when they decide they want to go for a walk. You just don't know. So please just take every precaution you can, whether it's locking the door, putting chimes on the doors, whatever you need to do. As a side note, the association, we have a grant for something it's called a Medical Alert Safe Return bracelet. It's an ID bracelet. It's very low tech. It's not GPS or anything like that, but it's designed so that you can wear it all the time. It's made from stainless steel, so you can shower with it. You can do, everything with it. You put it on. It's really difficult to take off. We can pay for the bracelet in the first year of monitoring with it. Basically, it has an 800 number on it, and it has an ID number. So each person has their own identification number. They wander, somebody comes across them. It does not have to be like a police officer. It could be any one of you comes across somebody with this bracelet. They call the 800 number and give the person on the line, so it is a live person, that ID number. What they have in front of them is all of that person's information, name, address, phone number, what they look like, eye color, hair color, so that somebody can't steal it and then suddenly, it's the wrong person. It even has the medical information to include what medications they're on. So that way, if they do wind up at the hospital, let's say, or with the police, they know, especially at the hospital, they know not to give them certain things, because of whatever it is, medication that they're on. It also will have their home address, obviously, and then the person that's caring for them's information. So that way they can say, Carol Smith it sounds like that's the daughter. I have her contact here. We have her phone number. We'll go ahead and give her a call. And so that company will not only call the loved one that's in charge of that person, but then they notify the police, and then they also notify us. So it's, again, if anybody needs that information, I can give that to them. We do cover the cost of the bracelet again and the first year of monitoring. Please just don't wait until you think they might wander, because really nobody actually decides to wander. They just kind of have a place they want to go, and they lose their way on the way. They can wander by foot, and they can also wander in the car. So if somebody is in the earlier stages and they are still driving, they can get in the car, and it might be the same route they've been driving for the past 15 years, but suddenly it doesn't look the same anymore. I've been saying, especially now with all the construction out there, how many different detours do we have to go on just to get to one place, right? So, that can confuse anybody. So anyway, you can wander by car, and you can also wander by foot, so just be really careful. And especially in this climate, forget it. It can be very, very dangerous. We have a story of a gentleman who was out here on vacation, was staying with his family in the hotels on the Strip. Somehow he got separated from his family. Couldn't remember what hotel he was staying at, how to get back there, but he did remember how to get to the car. So he got in the car, had the keys, and drove all the way back home to California. So this was years ago, but it is a story. So long-term memory is still there. He probably lived in that house for 20-something years. He knew how to get there. But that judgment wasn't there to go maybe find somebody to help him find his family. His thought process was just, I'm going to go home. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to go home. So, and that's wandering. He wandered all the way home. Thank God, he made it, and he didn't run out of gas, or maybe he thought enough to get gas. I don't know the whole story, but anyway, point of the matter is, anything can happen, and please just be prepared for it. And she has a little story about her husband as well.
Later in this journey, and I call it a journey, he decided that he was going home to his wife. And one New Year's Eve, he looked out the window, and there was a house down the street that had all the lights on, and he decided that that was his house. And it must have been, I'd say, at least 2 below zero. And he was going to leave. I had a double lock on the door, but I had left the key in, and he decided he was leaving. And I said, well, Amos, I'm your wife. No, you're not. My wife is waiting for me. And he would laugh when I said that I was his wife. So he got up, and I said, Amos, I'm going to call the police if you walk out the door. And Amos, in his usual manner, said, you do what you have to do. And he walked out the door. Well, he walked out in his house shoes 2 blocks down the street, and I got in the car and drove around. It just so happened that it was a neighbor's mother, and she knew what was happening, and she talked to him, and we got him back in the car and drove him home.
It's scary. It can be really scary. And just like that, he wasn't taking anything from her, and she did the right thing. She let him go, but she followed him right away. Because you don't want to make it worse. You don't want to, agitate him or aggravate him, but you don't want to let him go either. So do what you got to do. Yes.
Years ago, I heard a story that for people who like to wander or go out, that Alzheimer's patients, if you put a black rug in front of the door, that they think it's like a black hole and they're going to fall in, and then they won't go out the door. I don't know if it really works. Luckily, my mom's not at that yet, so I haven't had to do it. But I believe that works.
Really? I have never heard that, but I will definitely be doing research on that.
She was the director of Alzheimer's in Dallas.
Wow.
And I think I learned that from her years
Really?
ago.
I have never heard that. I'm going to do some research on that. And if anybody else knows anything about it, let me know.
Sounds a little bit like
I have heard about that, even in with Lewy body too, where the there's nothing in this room, but yes, the carpet to tile, or just the strips that are between the doorways, or like there's 2 different color carpets right there. Yeah, I have heard that.
My mother doesn't like that in between.
Really?
The tile and the floor,
Mhm.
the wood floor, the carpet is always, be careful, every time she gets to one.
Does she say what she thinks it is, or does it she just is worried about it?
It's not balanced.
Oh,
and
okay.
She's like, be careful.
The
it's
depth,
not
her
safe,
depth
yeah."
perception. Yeah.
Maybe it's part of that then. Who knows?
It could be, it affects everything in the brain it
With
affects.
that black thing.
I'm gonna look into that for sure.
Years ago.
Huh, interesting.
Because I've
Very
always thought, oh, I need
interesting.
stuff I need to.
Yeah. Huh, very interesting. Cool. So contact us, we can help. Our phone number and information is on the back of those pamphlets. That is the 800 number there, 800-272-3900. Just so you know, I think there's one more video in here too, but just so you know, our local office is off of Valley View and Tropicana. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can come by if you need to. You can call, make an appointment. You can just call if you need anything. We can help with anything that you need, really. Again, on the side, we have support groups, education, programs, and more. So please let us know. And then I believe, like I said, there's one more video. So, real quick, actually, get involved. So we have the Walk to End Alzheimer's coming up this year. It's on October 8th, I believe, at Town Square. So we have more information on that if you'd like. And then there's Longest Day that just passed at the end of June.
What's your address?
Oh, sorry. 5190 South Valley View Boulevard. And it's suite number 104. That's in Las Vegas.
Everyone's situation, I'm sure, is different. My mom was a shaker and a mover. She would do whatever needed to be done. She loved to cook. She can't cook anymore. She loved to keep her house clean. She can't do that anymore. And it's tough. I don't have all the answers. When she's sitting there and my dad's cooking, I don't always know what to do. I have to learn to be comfortable with that. And if I may say, that's a big part of this, learning to be really comfortable with your own limitations, learning to be comfortable with the fact that you don't know the answer, learning to be comfortable with you're in a situation and you think you need to give her something, but you don't know what it is. You're taking her around the flowers and she's not responding. You're taking her for a walk and she's really not there with you. I don't always know what to do, but I try.
What she said there is perfect, right? You don't always know what to do, but you try. And that's all that you can do. That's really all you can do. You're human. It's not easy by any means. So just do the best you can. Any questions? Comments? Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
A statement about until the bracelet arrives, if you can label their clothing, maybe in the back or the collar.
That's a good idea.
Name and a phone number or something like that. That's always good to do.
We have had people do that. For those of you that couldn't hear Karen, she said, if you don't get the bracelet right away, labeling clothing is something good to do. Like actually sew it in, right, Karen?
Yep.
Yeah. That way, name and address, phone number at least. Yeah. Good comment. Anything else? Anybody else? Questions? Yeah? Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.